Hello, I'm Steve Connard. I'm here with Peter Adkison and Steve Schwartzstein and Michelle Takahashi. And this happens to be the writing crew who is bringing Chaldea to life. We have quite a few other writers that we bring in occasionally, but this is what we call our staff writers. They're the ones that show up every week to the staff meetings and we talk about all the things that we're going to do and what have you. And I know that if you're following along Chaldea, Peter and I, we've been on a number of videos, and you probably know us quite a bit by now. Steve Schwartzstein, the other Steve, and Michelle. This is the first time we've had the opportunity to bring them in. I thought, it's a good time to introduce you guys after you've seen season one, and you guys can get some insight to how some of these stories came about, as from what Peter and I are saying. But maybe they'll give a little more, scary.
It's like when we give credit to Steve, who is Steve taking the credit from? I mean, that's the real question.
Yes. So Steve Schwartzstein and I met numbers of years ago. I worked with his cousin at Wizards of the Coast. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Rick Aarons.
Rick Aarons, thank you. So I was running IP development, and we were starting to develop TV shows for Wizards. And I guess, Steve, you just graduated from USC Film School, is that right?
I think I'd been out of school about a year from USC, the screenwriting program. And I guess Rick had been working with you guys for about, 4 or 5 years. And I had heard about Wizards of the Coast probably around 93 or 94 when Rick started working there. And I'm not a gamer per se, and I just knew things were happening. He had a lot of very positive sort of things to say about the company. And I guess after I graduated film school, I was really not sure what the hell I was going to do, like a lot of people. And I guess an opportunity sort of presented itself, and Rick invited me up there. And I remember meeting Steve for the first time, probably 98, I want to say. And Steve had an office in the back there, and it was really dark and moody, I remember. And Rick introduced me to Steve, and the two Steves met. And Rick left us alone for a couple hours, and Steve and I sort of BS'd about movies, particularly Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, for way too long. And if I remember, you even had a screenplay you were working on or something. I remember looking at that, and back then it was like finding information about screenplays and how they were written, what they look like. It's not like today where you can just go on the internet, and sort of find things, or there's sort of always a mystery around screenwriting, I think. I know just from my personal experience, before I got into USC, I was just obsessed with it, and I bought tons of books and things, And I just remember Steve's screenplay, and that's the reason why I bring it up. And it was not in the proper, shall we say, format, and Steve knows all the problems, but it's not unusual at all, for people when they're starting, because it's not like writing a book or a piece of narrative fiction or something, and so anyway, I just remembered, though, talking to Steve that first time and really just enjoying our meeting and stuff, and was sort of jazzed about that. And they eventually hired me for a couple of projects that they were working on to, I can't remember, with Hasbro, I guess you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was Hasbro.
And had some fun on that. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of our first meeting. And we were through after that, Steve and I became friends for, years now. And
well, also, if you recall, we it didn't take very long to figure out that, I'm a huge Seahawks fan, and there's no bigger Eagles fan than the other Steve. And so NFL talk was dominated. Anyway, sure. We could end up going off, we chat a lot, and we've become good friends over the years. And the funny thing was this, we flash forward a little bit, and the Dungeons and Dragons film came out, was about ready to come out. And Peter and I had gone down to LA to watch some early screening at Warner Brothers. And I'd gone down a day earlier to hang out with you, and we went to dinner, yeah. And that's where I met Michelle for the first time. Was actually at dinner. You invited, Michelle was there, and other people. I'm drawing a blank on their names. Actually, maybe Eric Trueheart and some other screenwriters. So anyway, that's why you met you guys for the first time. It's funny. You guys were like just browbeating some bad Hollywood directors and too much use of the yellow filters. And it was all this sort of funny bit. Anyway, so Michelle, why don't you give a little background on your how you got into it? Of course, you guys met at USC Film School, correct?
Correct. We met, when we started there, where everyone's introducing each other. So it's kind of like we've been friends ever since then. You know, we've always stayed in contact. Some people you stay in contact with, and some kind of less so. But we've pretty much always been, hanging out, going to the movies, talking, whatever. So he's like one of my closest friends. And so I think, I'm not sure if I was at that dinner that you're talking about, the Dungeons. I think I might have, what I remember is when you guys came here to do a Gen Con in LA. Did I see you before that?
I think it was the Star Wars
celebration.
Celebration. That's I remember introducing you to for me.
Okay. Right. Okay. And then I think I saw you at the Star Wars celebration at the LA Convention Center. That's what it was.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So that's where I got to meet Peter and Steve and see all the cool cosplay costumes there. That was really nice.
And Peter was running that convention, actually.
Right. So it wasn't a Gen Con thing. It wasn't a Gen Con collaboration at all.
The Gen Con company, as an organization, we put on the Star Wars show, just like
that's
show. So
right.
We had it was under license, of course, with Lucasfilm, and it was the show that really almost lost the company over it. It was a disaster for us economically, and it took us several years to climb out of it.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, worse than COVID.
Wow,
that's pretty bad.
Serious. I mean, I just always remember seeing a guy who was cosplaying as a samurai Elvis stormtrooper, and that was a very memorable image for me. He had so many genres layered, but you knew he was a stormtrooper with the Elvis pompadour.
That's interesting.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I remember going out to dinner and taking a bunch of you guys out in my car, and I used to in my old car, and we went over to get sushi somewhere, I think over at Universal, and like the very next day my car broke down. Like my alternator went bad, and I was like, God, I'm so glad it didn't go bad when I had all you guys in the car. It was like, oh my God, would have been a freaking disaster.
Were we to blame? Did we cause the alternator?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was an old car. It was the alternator was due.
Well, so we fast forward. So we've met and we worked together for a number of years, and then we flash forward, and Peter says, "Oh, I want to start a film studio." And one of the first projects we did was The Devil Walks in Salem, which is an interesting project. We're currently doing a thing called Actoroki, where we play an RPG and then we convert it into a script, and then actors come in and blah, blah, blah. You can go to our website, worldofchaldea.com or actoroki.com, and you can follow us. We're currently live streaming that every Thursday. Anyway, this was like our first forage into that. Remember that, Peter? So there was a game that was played. He ran Fiasco Games, which was a game designed by Jason Morningstar. And you had run the game, and I wasn't even involved in the game. I think I had just left EA prior to that. And you brought me in and tasked me with like, okay, here's this game. Here's all the notes. Here's everything that happened, converted into a script. And so I started working on the script, and I immediately called Steve. And I said, yeah, I need some help. So the two of us tag teamed it again. I stole credit from him and made it look like I did a good job. And anyway, so that was our first project we did. And then afterwards, we were sitting around going, well, what are we going to do next? And then it was like, oh, we first love is fantasy. We should do fantasy. And I can convince Peter we should just do Chaldea since we've done so much development on it. And of course, we decided that the script should be written well and laid out. I had this dream that we would actually publish them and people could read the scripts. And so I wanted them to be done well. And we're like, yeah, we should do that. Great. Awesome. I think we were just sitting around, the two of us in the Airy. That's the name of Peter's condo in Seattle. And so it's like, well, we should call Steve. You should get, we're going to need help. And I think, I don't know how long it was. It wasn't very long before you roped in Michelle. Do you recall that at all?
It was about, what happened was, first of all, it's a massive project, as we can all attest to, I think, at this point. And I was feeling a little overwhelmed by everything, being sort of like, quote unquote, the experienced screenwriter in this thing. And I felt like, well, here, just a little bit of background with Michelle and sort of our working sort of relationship. I used to write with a guy by the name of Eric Trueheart, who was another person we went to film school with. And he and I had a bit of success. He wrote on Invader Zim. And after he was on that show, he and I were collaborating mostly on features for a while. And we had optioned a script called Stoners versus Zombies, which is a comedy. And we optioned that twice. And, while Eric and I were writing, a lot of times we'd ask Michelle and various other people, a lot of times Michelle, just to sort of look through our scripts, see what's wrong. Because we know there's stuff wrong. And sometimes when you're really close to material, as anybody can tell you, you just sort of lose perspective. And Michelle was always really good at sort of pointing out things and just things we didn't see. She has an incredible eye for detail and things that just seem, not incongruous, just don't feel right, And so, and I was always in the back of my head, it's like, if I ever work on another project or whatever, there's a way to bring Michelle in, I think we got to figure it out, however. And it just, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but this opportunity sort of presented itself. And I just felt, not only that, I just felt like we needed another person's perspective in the room, someone who wasn't a guy, and
that's certainly true.
Yeah. In a male dominated sort of genre in a way, I guess.
Well, one of the goals that we originally had, Peter and I, was like, we wanted to have a lot of diversity in our story. And we've always been, we've loved strong female characters. And why not have an actual strong female writer write strong female characters? That would be a novelty, right, Peter?
Yeah. I just thought I thought it was essential, really, to have just sort of another voice in the room to sort of counter us, and also when I'm writing, it's great personally. I like having someone, Michelle and I have been really collaborating, on this project in a way. It's sort of like our process sort of goes, Steve will sort of maybe collaboratively, we work out an outline, and maybe Steve will go in and really hash out, the first draft, and sort of Michelle will take that and just really try to hone in on what's, what works and what's not working. And then sort of by that phase, we sort of go back and forth with it, and the three of us really, and just sort of get it to a place where we think it's, after many drafts, ready to go to Peter.
Well, actually, let me step in here for a second. So originally, Peter wrote a whole bunch of
that's true
scriptments or treatments or whatever you want to call it. Right. I go down the laundry list of, like, he loved the Sarva story. He felt very passionate about that. And I can let him talk about it if you want to talk about that. And Priyanka and Sybil, right? You wrote the treatments on those before you, like, okay, now that the pros are in the room here, you can take this is the story I want to tell. So of course we lobbed the cough grenade onto Peter.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks. Wake up, Peter. Get me your tech and gear. Yeah. Well, I'm the one person on the team that's not really a screenwriter and never went to screenwriting. Well, that's not true. I did go to film school. We had a screenwriting class in there, but I don't know. I always felt like the fourth wheel on it. But I love obviously the Chaldea story, and sometimes you get an idea for a character, and it would be the easiest way to sort of explain what I'm thinking of for the character was for me to just sit down and write a draft of the script and hand it off.
Yeah, I remember you like,
Actually-
yeah, that's all I need. Here you go. You take it.
Well, it was like in that Sarvis script. I mean, he had, a lot of the stuff that's in that story is pretty much already there. It was really, my job was just to get it more into screenplay format and sort of amp up maybe some drama in some places and things like that and bring out character, but basically the story is there, and so it's sort of my interpretation, then it goes to Conard's interpretation or Steve's, Conard, but that's how it is, the collaboration.
We so here's what's sort of funny. So when we started this, Peter and I had this we're going to tell this grand epic tale, and it's was originally way larger than even what it is now, which is hard to believe. And we had this laundry list of characters. It's sort of like the Avengers story where they have individual stories and we tell each one of those and eventually they come together and they form the Avengers. We kind of have the same thing going. So we have each of those POV characters and we wrote a story about each one, introducing them. It's probably a third to 40% more characters out there that we haven't even introduced yet. But originally we sort of did a divide and conquer. So like Michelle at one point, she was assigned
Alexa,
Chantel. Do you remember the Chantel story?
Yeah, those. And then I think Marco was the one I worked with Peter on developing his initial script and then outlined to extend it into more episodes. So yeah, we have a lot of different writing assignments and different ways to approach it, I remember.
Well, the Marco story, which is it's actually turned into one of my favorites, especially it feels like a sitcom that we could just, if we wanted to do a spinoff from Chaldea, we could just do the Cordovan informant, story, sort of like The Office or whatever. We just love the character. And the funny thing about that particular script and the one that follows it is that's actually Michelle did the whole thing. Like I came at the very end. We had this thing called the executive review at the end, but whatever. I mean, it's like a 99%. Michelle, you just sat down with Peter and you guys just basically you handed it off. So that's the one anomaly where all of us didn't really touch it. It was just, that was all Michelle. You want to talk about Peter. That all, working with Peter on it?
Oh, it was a good opportunity to get to collaborate with Peter because he had the outline, he had the initial script, he had a vision for it to be a short, like a quick thing to do to almost intersperse and sprinkle into the longer mythology of the arc. And it kind of helps weave and bind all the POV characters together with Marco. And I thought it was just a fun experience because it's while everything else has the heavy gravitas of the bigger storyline, at least you have moments of levity where you could tell a short story, give a lighter point of view, and then transition back into the meat of the story, which is, right? And Wrightswitz and Sarva. I always think of those are the top three. And we did so many of the other characters, maybe at some point, is it possible they might get folded in later down the line? The ones that we started with? Is that a...
Well, certainly. So
yeah, I plan on working in Chaldea for the rest of my life, and fortunately, I'm young, and so I think we'll get to all the characters eventually in one form or another. We decided to do Discordia as a novel, and that happened, and it's being released on by podcast right now. So that's cool. Okay. And yeah, I think we'll get to them all.
Well, it's interesting. So, Steve-O, you actually pulled in more people from USC than we've even spoken about so far. So I wrote it. There's this major character who's going to be showing up fairly soon, and in the grand scheme of things, fairly soon. And his name's Maliko. And I had written this script, and it was, it needed to be polished. I did the whole thing, first, second draft or whatever. And so then you said, well, we should bring in Eric Trueheart.
Yeah, so we wrangled Eric.
He's a hell of a writer.
He's a great writer, and he's a very funny guy.
Yes.
And he's a good friend of mine. And he was more than happy. And he did a terrific job on that script, I thought.
Well, yeah. He actually split it into two. So mine was so long, that's shocking to everything I do is long. Anyway, so he split it into two scripts, and they're fabulous. The we've been debating whether or not those scripts will be turned into long form novels. We're still trying to figure out how they'll ultimately.
Oh, I hope something. I mean, I hope it just gets out there somehow,
Yeah.
Figure it.
And then the other person you brought in was Scott Murphy.
Scott Murphy, another great writer. And Scott is from the Star Wars universe. He penned the Clone Wars movie. And he worked on the Yoast script for us. We were having some problems with the Yoast scripts. And he really smoothed out some things, I thought, story-wise.
Well, here. So when we first started this, and it was like Peter and I said we're going to do Chaldea. I said, well, Yo is obviously the center point of our story, and so I sat down almost immediately and started writing Yo. And it was like 400 pages later. I'm like, okay, I'm still moving, and we're like, oh, this needs to be put into some semblance of like something. I felt bad for Scott because we handed him 400 pages and said, break this apart.
I shortened it a fair amount, but it still wasn't enough, and there were just a couple things too that just didn't, I was having trouble sort of figuring out how to do, particularly in some of the material and the sensitive nature of what we were dealing with, and I thought the way Scott went in there, and not only in the way he parsed everything down and really, I thought improved the dialogue and things like that, but he just handled a couple things just very sort of elegantly, I'll even say,
Peter?
Can I ask a question? And this is like really for Steve-O and Michelle, because Steve and I talk all the time. We're in the thick of it. And the two of you are part of our team, but a little bit removed from things. Like, I'm curious, as professional screenwriters, when you talk to other people outside Chaldea about Chaldea, how do you describe it? Like, and how do you describe what is interesting or challenging or frustrating about being a writer on the project?
Wow. Okay. So when I talk to people about the project, I don't go into a lot of detail. I'll tell you, one of the difficult parts of this project to me is boiling it down to like a log line, it really, and that's actually really important in a Lord of the Rings kind of the way, where all these, Frodo's trying to get rid of the ring, boom, that's pretty much it, right? This is just, first of all, it's a multi-faceted, in a similar way, I guess Game of Thrones has that type of issue. But anyway, I'll get back to the way I sort of say it's the project I'm working on. It's sort of like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, except more fantasy oriented than both of them, and more hardcore. That's really what I say. And I can't go into a lot of deals because to go beyond that to me is just a little bit, it's hard to sort of, I'm going to go into the weeds, and there's just too many weeds in a way, and I think it's sort of, people always are like, oh, I like Lord of the Rings and I like Game of Thrones. And it's sort of a simple way to sort of boil it down. It's the two most popular things that people know. And I also mentioned the fact that it's sort of a live action and animated hybrid sort of project too, which also seems to get people's interest, the way, because I think that's sort of what makes it unique.
That's what I say too. I talk about the hybrid nature, and everyone I tell is, oh, that's really cool, and they're really interested in how that is possible, and the point of view that would elicit, and the opportunities to tell the story. So I think people like that idea of the combination.
Yeah. I guess I'll probably say it's more of a comic book first. I'm so much more familiar with the comic book. We're always getting pages of the comic book. So that I'm sort of like, it's a comic book with some live action sort of, not vignettes, but it's sort of, I always compare it to sort of like video games. When you have these sort of, you're playing the video game and then you hit a spot where they'll have like an acted segment.
Yeah, the cutscenes.
Yeah, the cutscenes. Sort of the way I think this is sort of.
But it's also, you also have the dialogue, the actors voicing it with the sound effect and the music.
Right.
So it's almost like listening to a radio program with all the sounds and actors acting, but you're getting the visuals. So it's like a comic book come to life is how it feels. And the sounds and the oral effect of everything kind of give it that special quality versus just, the images alone are amazing, but then you add those extra layers and it gives it an exciting edge, I think.
Oh, thank you.
I know that one of the things that Steve-O's always, we call him Steve-O because there's two Steves. We don't know who we're talking about. Anyways, you go just call me Steve-O. Your middle initial is O, right? Isn't that correct?
Not really. Only in this group.
I'm trying to remember what the O was from.
Stephen O. Schwartzstein is just part of my, it's part of my aura, man.
Oh, I always thought that was your middle name.
It's a bit of a joke.
Something new every day.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay. Anyway, so one of the things you always beat the hell out of me all the time is like, oh, so what's the voice? We got to capture that voice, right? When you're talking because once you understand the voice of a character, it's easy to write for the character.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think it's good to have some type of, either it's a person you met or something in your head that sort of gives you sort of a direction, maybe, or an actor you particularly like or something. I think it's a difficult thing to sort of do. I think sometimes you'll start a screenplay and you start writing a character and you haven't quite figured out the voice. I know I've rewritten entire scripts, changing a voice of a character around, and it's usually improved the script a lot when I've done that. Sometimes I'll just have the way the character's written is not quite, I don't know, it's just not landing appropriately. And then suddenly I'll see something, or just something occurs to me, and I'm like, okay, if I write it in a particular voice or something, it's somehow I can relate to it usually, or something, something, it's almost always sort of a part of you when it's a lead character and you're trying to figure out a voice. It's like an extension of yourself somehow in some bizarre way.
I wonder, Michelle, so you wrote the Marco scripts before you ever heard Eric Reanderson. Now Eric Reanderson is just synonymous with Chaldea. He does the narration.
Right. It really helps once you hear the voice of the actor and how he reads it, he gets it, and it helps you on future scripts that we write to have that voice, and it really helps you're writing for him, because what he can do with it. And
so I have a specific question. Peter pointed something out about Marco, and I sat there and I went, I never noticed that before. I wonder if Michelle did that on purpose. So Peter goes, one of the mannerisms of Marco is that whenever somebody says something, he always says the same thing back to him. You said something to that effect, right, Peter?
Yeah, he'll repeat what somebody said to him frequently, not always, but he'll.
Well, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he'll often repeat and he'll repeat himself.
Right.
Pradava, set kills Pradava. He'll.
I didn't do it. It just seemed like it fit for that character, more of a comical, like him being flustered and frustrated and a little bit of the stammering, and that just kind of seemed right for Marco to have that, where all that frustration's balled in him and he just has to get it out, and it comes out in spurts, and it's almost like he has to say it out loud for himself to go, is this really happening? I have to say it out loud. Is this happening? Yes, it's happening right now. So I thought Eric does an amazing job with it, and he totally gets it. He is Marco, right?
Yeah. We could not be happier. Right?
Yeah.
Just wow. Yeah. Every time his cool voice comes in and he's narrating all the chapters, what a talent. And we're super happy. And you wrote him a great script, a couple scripts, and some of them are coming out soon. Season 2, right? I always get confused. We have an actual live action film within the Marco chapter. So I'm sure you'll look forward to seeing that.
Yep.
In the near future, how?
Probably be a year at least.
Okay.
COVID really slowed us down. So.
Yeah.
So if I can jump in there, see, I think that insight from a writer about a character. I don't know, Steve, I'll put you on the spot. Do you have a similar sort of like a character that you've written for in Chaldea, where there's something interesting about the character that can come to mind that helps you recall what the voice is for the character, or something you think about when you're writing on.
Right. I gotta. Wow. That's a.
Somebody. Yeah.
I gotta think on that. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about these characters in a while. You know,
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're delicately
Well,
dancing about
you know,
the fact that we
there's a.
fired
there
both
was-
Michelle and Steve when COVID came out.
There was a character I had written in one of the Sarva stories that I kind of made up in a sense, but it was really based on the Mud character from Star Trek, you know, and I loved writing that character. I was sort of like, I don't know, I was thinking about Star Trek and writing this guy, and his name was Mund, and we haven't gotten to him yet in the stories, but it's sort of comes later on. I'm trying to think what else. That's just one that comes to mind. I mean, yeah, I got to really think about
Well,
that.
let me ask a slightly adjacent question. It might trigger something like,
Yeah.
when you think of some of our lead characters, Yo, Ricefit, Sarva, what do you like getting into the head of the characters? Like, what do you think? How would you tell? Let's say you hired a writing assistant. You're like saying, "Hey, okay, you're going to be writing for Sarva. Well, this is what you got to know about Sarva. You got to know that she is da 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 da."
Yeah, I mean, Sarva as a character is interesting because it's one of those things. It sort of evolved, I think, her character, and a lot of times it evolved in the sense when Michelle got involved in the project. to be honest, because the way I was writing her, I think initially, and that world, Sarva's world, was really, you know, it was sort of a reverse. It was a man's world, sort of reversed. They were taking on male characteristics in a way. You know, it's a woman-dominated society. So that was sort of my mindset a little bit, which is not totally right in a way, because how women would handle that situation really is different. You know, it's sort of, they're unique. And I was struggling a little bit with that one. I mean, I think I got her voice. You know, I mean, I wanted her to be a strong character, you know, and certainly intelligent and flawed at the same time, you know, in terms of really from the standpoint of the world she was raised in, and you know, and how her viewpoint on the world was sort of formed from what she didn't know, you know, and that's sort of part of her arc in the story, really, that we're going to see, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. You know, a lot of the stuff was sort of there on the page too, you know, already. And Steve and I it was really trying to get into Steve's head in terms of like Yo and how he wanted it. You know, it wasn't necessarily, you know, in some of those characters. A character like Ariane, I remember Steve was having some trouble with, you know, in some of those relationships early on. And I was trying to sort of, and I don't know what, honestly, sometimes you don't know what you're thinking. I just know when something sort of feels right, you know, when you're writing it almost, you know. And Ariane, I just felt when I was writing had to be a certain way, really to juxtapose him with the other characters. You know, I didn't want him to feel similar to the other ones. And,
well, one of the challenges that we had was some of the characters, you know, this is based on Peter's D&D campaign, which we've played in for 30 years, but most of these characters came to life, you know, in the early 80s. And so we recall the player, their mannerisms of how they played their character, and you know, at the time. So they're the basis for the character. Yo and Ariane were both PCs. So I remember them vividly as players, but it's like when you're telling a story, they need to change somehow, you know, to tell a better story. And that's where you guys really helped out, because the problems I have tunnel vision, right? Like I remember, like, you know, CJ was our buddy who played Yo. Well, I knew exactly how Yo would deliver that line or how he would say it. And most of the time he'd be cursing a blue streak because CJ loved to swear. But anyway, so yeah, you guys really helped out a lot. You know, Peter and I always joke about the more better filter. You know, you guys are definitely the more better filter. You know, so can we please go hit the more better filter? It's always so much fun, especially when I get something back from Michelle. She goes, "Okay, here you go," and the dialogue is the same, but it's just better. You know,
wow, that's really nice.
Polished,
Yeah.
and you know, it's just it's always probably at least a fifth shorter. It's like says the same thing but just quicker, you know. Anyway,
yeah, it's a lot of work to do that. Yeah, but that's what it's about. That's what writing is, right?
well, wasn't that Mark Twain that says I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time?
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
the other thing I found interesting, and I'll tell me what you guys think about this. Like we wrote a lot of these scripts. Well, Peter, like I don't know how many years we wrote before we ever recorded anything. Is it 4 years maybe? I don't know. It's time is
Well, before we
recorded lines for the first time, we actually had actors come in. Do you remember how long it had been?
It wasn't that long because we did War Room all in just a few months.
Well, that's true.
After War Room, well, we did, but then we went. It was about 2 years of 2 years.
Oh, that's right.
Of writing the other chapters and figuring out the big story arc. We did War Room, which ended up being chapter 3 in our series, with very little change from what we did originally. We did it as a proof of concept.
Right.
We said, hey, let's do one chapter of what this looks like and see if we like it.
I think what's interesting, you talk about writing characters and their voices and whatever. So you sit down and, whenever you write, anybody who's a writer knows this, you have a love affair with your keyboard. And if you're doing it right, you're doing it every day for hours on end. And, that's what you do. And you have something in your head as you're writing the character. And then Peter goes out and he hires this actor who comes in and completely flips the whole thing on its ear. And it's like, wait, so it's hard as a writer to go, oh, wait, and I've come to the point now where I just embrace it. It's like, oh, okay, that's not what I expected, but cool. You want to talk about that at all, Peter?
Well, I remember just recently, a year ago, I guess it was 2 years ago now, Sybil, and we hired Satine Phoenix to play it, and you're like, I didn't picture Sybil this way at all, but I love it. Like, and we gave her a Russian accent, and that was just so different from how you envisioned it. So I mean, I guess I want to throw that question towards Steve and Michelle. Any thoughts about, like, you had a character in mind that you were writing for Chaldea, and then we cast the character, and the actor performs the character, that sort of feedback loop.
Right. It's like when we saw some of the earlier, like when you kindly let us peek into the world of the auditions, it was kind of our chance to really see how people interpreted the scripts. We don't coach them, we just watch, right? And that was a really good experience, just to see. And there's some you just know right away, oh, that person gets it, or oh, they put a little twist to that I didn't even think about. And then the people you finally picked, they bring their own knowledge and experience and their interpretations to the characters, and they just add another layer to it. So once you have physical people embodying it, it makes it easier to write those characters because you're writing to their strengths and what voice they're lending it, and it helps you shape it in the future scripts too, and that also makes it fun.
It's so interesting how this business of making movies, how the character is such a collaborative work of art. The character is the writer, the actor, the director, the story. All these things, swirl around, and out comes this character that, of course, will most readily identify with the actor, but the actor collaborated with a bunch of people to get there.
Right. And they collaborate most closely with you as a director, right? So you have those conversations with them to help them kind of.
It's interesting. I do like to say that I like to work with actors in a collaborative way. That I think we're like, I think the best performances come from a collaboration of the director and the actor, but the director is channeling the writers and the script itself and anything else related to the production. And it's interesting how just recently, just in the last month, I've had 3 or 4 times somebody compliment our scripts, our Chaldea scripts and Akaroki scripts that we've been doing lately, and that if the raw material is the script itself, and so I think that that collaboration, in my mind, I have to really think more broadly than director and actor. Because we have to work with the story that's given to us too.
And also the editor that you work with to kind of put it all together, right? So everyone's like, it's almost like a relay race tag team. Sometimes you're working in conjunction, other times we pass the baton to you and then you pass it to the next person. And everyone's working together symbiotically, just cohesively, and is able to create this nice package to present.
I think that is part of the magic of making movies, is that there is so much more collaboration just by its nature.
Right.
And then say a novel.
Completely. Or even a playwright who has much greater control over what they want shown on stage. I mean, it's like the director, but they also wrote it, for example. Then they really might have a very hard, fast vision that everyone needs to comply by. But this is much more collaborative. And then, you know, there's not hard lines, you know, the edges are fluid and they're bendable. So then sometimes when you shift, another door opens, you might find another way, you know, to tell the story that you didn't think of before. And it ends up being something better that you never thought of because of this opportunity that presents itself.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things with Chaldea that's interesting is that not only we have normal sort of human characters that we're writing for, but we're also writing for supernatural characters. You know, we have there's this one character is a familiar to a magician. His name's Chowder. He's an imp. We you know, Steve, you and I were writing this comedy bit, right? Remember the dialogue of this silliness, and he's a bad rhymer and all that.
Right.
And then the actor came in and he just he went crazy. And I remember Peter's comment to me was like, I don't know if that's really, really horrible or like truly amazing. Please tell me. I thought it was amazing and we love it, but it was just, anyway.
We eventually figured it out. It was amazing. Yeah. Drew
Yeah,
Highland,
of course.
it was amazing.
Oh yeah, we absolutely love them. But it's like, yeah, that's an example of somebody coming in and really, and especially with supernatural characters, because they can really go crazy. By the way, I don't know if you fairly recently, we have a major villain which is going to be revealed. People have sort of hinted, have seen the villain in season 1, but don't know it yet. Super evil entity, dark power, and then we're going to do the VO for it. Peter comes to me and says, "I think I want this character to be female." And I was like, "Huh, how cool is that idea?" Like, it was just the whole time we've ever written for the character was always in my mind.
I know who you're talking about now. Bramalex.
Bramalex.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's like breaking news for us. Wow.
There you go.
So is this something that came up during sheltering in place during the pandemic? You have time to think about what you want to do with the project, or
I think it happens like it's a demon type character, a demon or devil or some netherworld creature, and of course, knowing the way Steve and I like to, you know, make fantasy, there's just going to be a lot of those, right? I mean, that's not going to be that rare of a thing to have some demonic, devilish, whatever. And I think I just felt like, how do we make this one different from the other ones? And it just like, why not a female? Yeah, why not? So,
interesting.
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Well, we recorded it, right? We did all the
yeah. Well, I could go find it right now and post it, but I don't know what sort of.
Well, the interesting thing is that Bramalex has like the voices of 10,000 dead souls or something, and so we end up having to every actor that came in the studio reread the lines, which
That's
is
right. Yeah.
Going to be.
So you layered it in there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it took 2,000 actors. Yeah, it took us all day.
Oh, wow.
Then I taught them that they could do you could just copy and paste and shift and.
Thank God.
Anyway, well, you know, we've been chatting here for about an hour. So, Steve-O, Michelle, I mean, what do you think now? You know, you've been out at Chaldea for what? 6 years or something. I don't know how long it's been.
Oh my God, it's been that long.
2014. six or seven. Yeah.
Yeah.
2014 for me. Yeah. For me.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we can officially say the COVID time doesn't count, right? In the future.
Okay. So we're subtracting some months.
Yeah,
So then
that doesn't count
okay,
because
okay,
it's like
okay,
we've been all on vacation, and Peter and I are overdoing actor stuff and whatnot. But yeah, anyway. So you guys are a treasure to work with. We love you. We're glad that you're on the team. Everybody who enjoys Chaldea, they now know why they love it because you guys have written so well. I hope you guys can stick with us to the end. Peter and I are going to do this until we're dead. Of course, we're young, and you guys are younger than us, at least a little bit.
Not by much, but yeah.
Hey, before we sign off, Steve-O, Michelle, starting with you, Steve-O, do you have anything you'd like to pimp while you're here? Any projects that websites?
Oh God, no, not at all. I mean, I'm all about Chaldea, man. Let's go Chaldea. That's my project, man. This is it.
Best ever.
Nothing else.
Well, we've wrangled you in to help us out on a couple of live things for Actoroki.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I got same question for Michelle. We got one question from chat. So I'm going to hear Michelle's answer. Do you have anything you want to promote before we go to this question from chat?
No, just looking forward to more releases from Chaldea. That's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
It's like, yeah.
I'm getting trained on how the social media, when you have people on your show.
It's like this machine that's churning out new material on a regular basis. It's like, it's awesome.
So we have a question from chat. How do the writers handle the situation when what they feel is great writing lands on the cutting room floor? Any examples of that happening in Chaldea?
Well, let's see, Connard. No,
cutting room floor of script wise, not film.
First off, what you think is great is not always great. You've got to be honest with yourself. And if it's not listen, first off, I feel this is Peter and Steve's project. I've said this before. Unless I feel something is I feel really strongly about, I'll sort of, I'll bend the knee. This is, if whatever I'm writing is not hitting the mark for whatever reason. And it's I don't want to get hung up on anything for too long too. I don't think it's good to sort of, you make your pitch maybe again if you really think it's important, and if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. You move on. It's like giving up, throwing an interception. If you're a quarterback, you got to have a short memory. You got to get back out there and ready to throw some touchdowns or whatever, get some first downs. It's just it's the nature of the business, really. You can't be too in love with yourself or your writing or anything. And that's really been the best part of the project, really, is the collaborating, as we were just talking about a little bit, but the collaborative nature, because a lot of my writing career is just been myself, or writing with just one other person, and it's really been a positive experience, I think, for the most part, really, that kind of thing, so, but that's how I handle it. I'm probably on the passive aggressive side, so maybe it's not the best thing to do all the time, but I don't know.
Michelle, how do you feel about that?
It's like you definitely have to let go. You can't be precious about everything you write, because what seems good in your head at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you think this is amazing, and then the next morning you wake up, wow, that's not as amazing as it was at the 2 a.m. point, and so you have to be thicker skin and be open to criticism, because it's constructive criticism, and you only get better when you get pushback and you get comments to help you be a better writer. If everyone's telling you how great your stuff is, then how are you going to grow as a writer? You need that feedback. And so this is definitely a good experience in collaboration, working with different people and learning when to fight for something when you really feel it's something important, and when to just, this is part of the flow, just move forward. It's not like a life or death thing, and it's it's all good.
I mean, really, God invented alcohol for a reason, and I mean, and if they, if it hurts, it hurts less after a couple of Budweisers. I don't know.
Well, for me with Chaldea, I think that Peter and I get to create the really cool big ideas. Like this is where a dragon comes in and destroys the world, you know. Like I get to see that come to life at some point. I'm not gonna get hung up on what verbiage he's using when he does it, or you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I've learned a long time ago that going through the process is just going to get better and better and better, and don't get in the way of it. As long as that dragon comes in and still does the thing that I wanted to do originally, I'm good, right? It's funny. Everybody who knows me by now, I have this thing where I stop and I stare. I should have a hard drive light on my forehead that should flicker because I'm always taking in people's comments. And yeah, anyway, so rewrite is the game. Didn't you say something like that? Rewriting is the game. What's the comment you always make?
Rewriting is writing.
Writing is always rewriting.
Yeah, there you go. So
and looking at our scripts where the three of us are taking turns adjusting the script once we use the color text, you've got a rainbow of colors. It's like Connard green, Schwartzstein blue, Takahashi purple, and you're like, what is happening? There's a lot of colors here, you know.
Well, that's when you know it's going through. That's when you know we're getting close.
Yeah,
we should publish one of those one time. It's like a rainbow of text.
It might cause some blindness. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. It's a lot of color.
By the way,
it helps.
Michelle really did a good job. And the thing she did, just to put this in, is the versioning control. Versioning control is good. It's important. And understanding versioning control so that you're always working on the proper file. You know, if just one person writing a novel or whatever, I'm sure the versioning control is not as big as an issue as. So when you're tossing scripts over the fence, you know.
Yeah,
it's hard to keep track of what version. Yeah,
we have great version control now. Definitely, that's something that's certainly improved. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to. There's what you don't want to do is you don't want to spend a lot of time writing and then find out you lost it. That's a little more aggravating than rewriting.
Yeah. We don't want to go there at this point.
No. Save
early, save often.
Yeah.
Auto save. Yep.
I think let's save early, save often, and let's save this for another time. Some more chatting about Chaldea.
All right.
Yeah, somebody has to stop this video because we will just keep talking. So somebody needs to say
I'm hitting the save. Control Alt Delete.
Thank you, Steve-O, Michelle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Steve-O, Michelle, thanks for joining us.
And everybody out there.
Steve, thanks for leading the conversation on this.
No problem.
Kind of sit back and hang out. All right, and thank you out there for joining us. We love Chaldea. We love you. Please, I hope you enjoy our work. Subscribe, turn on notifications, tell people about us. We have our Facebook page for Chaldea, World of Chaldea. We also are on Twitter and we're on Instagram. And Sarah's posting all that stuff for us in chat. And we are producing all sorts of video content and Actoroki. We have on our website, worldofchaldea.com. We also have actoroki.com, which is actually part of the World Chaldea website. You should come check it out. We're doing Actoroki every Thursday night from 6 p.m. Pacific until whenever we get done. And what we do is we RPG stream, RPG sessions, and then we write a screenplay of the session. And a week later, we have a actor studio session where we work with actors to perform the roles from the screenplay. And then a week later, we will have edited it all together, which is what I'm doing this week, which is why I'm a little like strung out. And we play the movie that is all that edited together. So a very quick cycle on coming out with chapters. So check it out, actoroki.com. Thanks again to our guests. Thanks again to Steve. Thanks again to Sarah and Marcus, who are running everything from behind the back room. And we will see you on this channel again soon. Bye.
Ciao, everybody.
See ya.